Okay, now that we've got all the inside corners done, this would be a great time to double, triple, and quadruple check that all your arrows are in the right direction. When you only have one little connection to make to fix it, it's much easier than when you're done with the whole thing. I can't stress enough. Okay, so make sure it goes up, left, down, and this top LED here is going to the right. We know they're all opposite each other, so this one down here is going to the left this way. And for that to maintain the bottom one, it's got to go down, right, up, and then this bottom one here is going to the left. Looks good. If you look really closely, you might notice I actually ruined this corner piece here. All the insulation came off when I was grabbing it with the tweezers. Now, that's okay again, as long as they're all not stripped naked in here and shorting out. Again, when we put the cover on, no one's going to see it. That's perfectly okay. So, now let's go ahead and do the outside ones. In all cases, they're opposite of the strips that are on there now. So if this is up, the arrows on this one come down. This one's to the left, therefore the strip here goes to the right. This one's down, therefore the strip next to it goes up. These are already done. This strip is up, therefore this one here should be down. That's to the right, therefore this one goes to the left. This one goes down there, therefore the one I put in there now has to go up to complement it. All right. So now we can put in the rest of the wires all the way to the outside, measuring them all the same way we did the inside ones. Eyeball the first one, kind of strip it, give it a double check. As you get near the outside, obviously they get a little bit longer. These are going to be U-turns. We'll look at that in a second when we get there. Let's just finish all these, all the corner pieces. All right, I thought I'd point out here, when you're doing the data out pins, in the middle pin here, see this little capacitor right here, you need to be careful when you solder this wire on here that the end of the wire doesn't reach in and touch this capacitor. Otherwise, bad things will happen. You could probably wreck the LEDs. At a minimum, it won't work. So be wary of that. The neat thing that you can do once you get to the part where you got 3 wires on, around this top part only, obviously, because it ends here, you can hook up the power and the data lines, and you can actually do some testing, and kind of an early little reward while you're working on your project. When you do hook up the power, use a black for ground, red for hot, and any other colors for your data line. Okay, once you got the power and stuff all hooked up, you can then connect it to the Arduino, much the same way we did when we tested the whole strip in the first place. But because we're only going to do a few LEDs, we can kind of cheat, and I'm going to use a USB charger for my power on my Arduino, and I'm going to use this power through the Arduino to light up the LEDs. Now you can only do this if you're only going to use a few LEDs. If I lit this entire thing up this way, it probably wouldn't work. I'd either wreck my charger or my Arduino or maybe even the LEDs. So don't do this if you're going to light up more than just 4 single strips of LEDs, all right? Now, what do? You hook the 5-volt line from your LED, which is the red wire, to V in on your Arduino. Then you hook the ground line on your LED strip over to a ground pin on your Arduino. The ground and the data 6, just like the LED test, go to the resistor divider that's described in the Adafruit website, which I'll put in a link on the description of this video. The divider output goes to the data in on the strip. The data out is not used. It's going to a strip that's not even powered or in use at this time. I plug in my charger, and the LED strip test function should work fine. Remember, the code is designed, it's configured for 300 LEDs. There's only, what, 5, 10, 15? There's only 20 on here. That's okay. It just thinks it's talking to a whole lot more than it actually is. So it might take a little while before it gets around to doing each one of the patterns, because it's busy dealing with the other 280 non-existent LEDs. But it's definitely working. So this is a great way to get a little bit early success. Now, when you're done with the 3 inside wires all the way around like this, you're going to do the 3 outside wires. And when I start doing the outside ones, I actually start from the outside and go in on these ones, because it turns out it's harder to do this outside one if all the other wires are in your way. So that's just the way I did it. Now, when you measure the outside wire, these are going to go kind of on a 45-degree angle. These all kind of concentrically had a right angle on them like that, but these are not going to work that way because you just can't, there's no room. So I'm going to eyeball this first one. The outside wire here is going to be that long. So I'm going to grab this with the pliers again and kind of walk around each one of these corners and see if the same length will fit. Now this is looking, it looks pretty good. So there's an inside, this is an acute angle, and it's slightly long. This is an obtuse angle, and it's slightly short. So I think it's okay for all of them. Actually, it looks way too long for this. This strip here is just not in the right location. Remember what I said, you got to start, these are not yet soldered in, so these can move a little bit. So that's actually why it was too short there. Now it looks pretty good, and it looks good there. This is good, and of course this one's loose. So yeah, we're looking pretty good all the way around here. So it looks like, again, you can still use the same length for all the corners. That's a good sign. Now once you've got all the wires on all the corners completed, you need to make this U-turn over here. If you look closely here, the data out pin right here has to come up around and go to the data in pin on this side. The ground has to come up and around on that ground, and the 5 volt here comes up and around on the 5 volt there. Again, we can make 3 concentric arcs without overlapping any of those wires, if we're careful. So again, we just kind of eyeball it and kind of figure out how long it needs to be. And clip them, strip them, and put them in there. And once you get your U-turn on, you're ready to go. I wired it back up to the Arduino. I also got the bigger power supply out because this can take like 1 3/4, almost 2 amps. Now some USB chargers can handle that, and the one that I'm using probably can, but as a general rule, you probably want to shy away from USB once you're more than 1 amp for stuff like this. So again, the red wire is hot, black wire is ground. Same with the jumpers, as well as what's coming out of this power supply here, plus, minus. I had to hook the ground up from the power supply to share the ground with the Arduino. That's kind of a universal thing if you're not familiar with that. All the parts have to share the same ground. This yellow wire, again, is not connected. This will connect up when we have more than 1 LED. That's what goes to the next LED's data in. So you probably want to turn on the LED part first because it's receiving data, and it's okay if it doesn't get any data. It's generally not a good idea to send voltages and data into things that are not powered on. So let's go ahead and turn on the LED. Luckily there's no smoke, so we passed the smoke test. Turn on the Arduino, and it should start working. And as you can see, it's going in the order in which I've wired it. So that's actually a wonderful example. You could see how it filled in and S-snaked around. That is the order in which the LEDs are wired and numbered. When we start working on the software, when we write the code, we got to remember the order in which the LEDs are numbered, because we're going to turn on and off individually based on their individual numbers. Now this might be a good time to test the diffuser as well. Since it's all lit up, you can snap that on. Now this is some weird test patterns that aren't necessarily the patterns you're going to use when we're painting digits and so on into these. I'm having a little difficult time getting it lined up without looking too closely at it, but it's roughly in there. So now it's going to cycle through a bunch of different colors here. I think it's working pretty good. Now we just got to wire up the rest of them.